2022 was my best year so far. I have been alive for 24 years, and out of the years where I have been sentient and able to, kind of form my own life, 2022 was the year that I think I did it the most successfully. It was the first year in a really long time that I felt genuinely happy, and I felt like I accomplished a lot and that I worked really hard towards my goals and that it paid off in the end. And the way that I did this was I made myself a priority for the first time in my life. I usually am somebody who puts like things that are necessary above my own mental well-being. So for an example, like I will put my schoolwork before sleep or before working out, or in other cases where I will help somebody before I help myself. But this year I really wanted to make it a focus to try and make myself a priority, because I felt like if I was gonna try to grow and expand and use 2022 to improve on the things that I was not feeling most confident about in my life, then I was going to need to focus on myself. Besides making myself a priority, I also made goals and expectations for myself that were reasonable and not unreasonable, which is something that we'll get into here in a minute. But before that, I want to go back to 2021 and talk about where I started with all this. 2021 was a particularly hard year for me. Obviously 2020 was really difficult on everybody, and 2021 was also very difficult for me, and I would even argue more difficult for me than 2020 was. My self-esteem was probably at its all-time low. I've never seen it lower in my life. I was also consistently stressed, tired. I had a horrible sleep schedule. I was going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning and sleeping until 2 in the afternoon, sleeping very long periods of time. I was just letting my house get into this state of disarray, and everything was a mess all the time, and I just felt like I wasn't being a very good partner to my boyfriend, and I wasn't being a very good like sibling or family member to my family, and I really wasn't where I wanted to be. As 2021 began to close, I realized that I wanted to make some serious changes in my life, and so I decided that I was going to make one goal for the year of 2022, and that was to be happy. That was the only goal I was going to have. My only goal was to try and to do things that would make me happy. And I was going to kind of use 2022 as like my pursuit of happiness between a really awful year of 2021 and hopefully a really good year coming up in 2023. I essentially used 2022 as my gap year between misery and whatever 2023 holds for me. So in this video, we're going to talk about my goals from 2022. We're going to reflect on them. I'm going to talk about what they were, if they were successful, if I felt like they were successful. I'm going to talk about the failures with my goals as well, because I think that it's important for like transparency, just to talk about some of the failures that I feel have happened over the course of the year. Afterwards, we're going to talk about my goals for 2023, and I'm going to show you how I came up with them. I did also make a little PDF for everybody, so if you want to also do what I did, you can find a link to it in the description. It's completely free. There's a couple different versions of it. There's like a pink version, a black and white version, and a brown version, so if you want to do that, you can find it in the description for free. So like I said, my only goal for 2022 was to be happy. That was the only thing that I wanted to focus on, and I wanted to do things that I thought would make me happy. So to define my goal for 2022, which was to be happy, I came up with a list of a couple different things that I thought would bring me joy throughout the year. And for each one of those, I also included like a little sub goal. But the main goal was to be happy. So the goals that I set for each of these little categories, they were goals, but they were not my primary goal, where my primary goal was to be happy. So the first thing that has made me happy for a very long time is exercise, and I know that it's a super, common thing, and that everybody says if you work out you'll be happier, and it's true. I mean, most of the time when I work out I feel happier. There are some days when I have really bad workouts where I don't feel very happy afterwards, but that was something that I knew would improve my mood overall if I was just to exercise more. And something that I really wanted to do was I wanted to be able to run a mile, because a couple years ago I tried a challenge where I ran for 30 days. I ran 1 mile every day for 30 days, and my time had really improved, but I wanted to improve on that time. So I had decided that I was going to try and just run a mile and just see how fast I could do that. Another thing that I knew would make me happy in the long term would be to maintain a clean house, and this is something that I was really focused on, because in 2021 my house was a disaster all the time, and I just felt like it was never clean, and when your space or your environment is a mess, you're likely to also kind of feel out of control. So I was just trying to put a big emphasis on making sure that my house stayed clean. So my main goal for that was just to prevent large messes from accumulating. So I would just try to make sure that not the whole house was a mess. Even if just one room was a mess, that's better than the whole house being a mess. The third thing that I knew that would make me happy would be to finish my master's degree. At the time, it was obviously January of last year, and I was still in my master's program, and I was really feeling unsure about what I wanted to do with my life. So I was thinking that I was going to do a master's program and then maybe potentially go back to school after I finished my master's degree. And so I wanted to apply to some colleges and like look into some colleges for like a second master's degree or a PhD. Because I am somebody who believes that learning is something that happens over the course of your entire life, and anytime where I have the ability to take part in like higher education, I'm going to try to do that, or like trainings or anything. I'm always going to be the person who's going to try and do those things. And so I knew that by finishing my political science degree and starting something new, I would probably be happy. So that's my third goal. My fourth goal was to just be creative. I wanted to try and do something creative every single day because I really do value creativity, and I think that it helps me think better logically if I'm able to also be creative. Because obviously, you know, you hear the whole you have two sides of your brain thing, right, where it's type A and type B, and one type is more creative than the other, that's more logical. And I feel like if you have a good balance between the two types of your brains, then you kind of are like more well-rounded. And I feel like that if I have a creative outlet to my life, then I am able to perform better in my logical skills, where if I perform just in my logical skills, I see my logical skills deteriorate. On the other hand, if I'm consistently acting logical or I'm engaging in like logical behavior, then I will also see myself losing creativity, and I don't want to lose that creativity because, like I said, I value creativity. So it's very important to me that I was doing things that were creative every single day, or at least trying to do something that was creative every single day. I had initially planned to learn how to sew, but I was unable to fulfill that. But I did do some other projects, like some art projects. I also started writing a book, and so that became a big goal of mine to kind of work on my book. And I just wanted to fulfill like this creative side of myself, and so I knew that by doing something creative I would feel happier. So the fifth thing that would make me happy in 2022 was getting a job. And I really wanted to get a job that was going to be in the data realm, particularly like a data analyst, because that's what I really enjoyed most about my degrees. And so I wanted to kind of like take advantage of that and find a really good like work from home, remote, I guess I'd make work from home and remote the same thing, but just like a good job that pays well, had good benefits, and would allow me to continue to learn data science because I really do love data science. So going into 2022, those were my goals, and those were the logic I had behind my goals, along with like the little sub goal that came with it. So tracking my goals in 2022 was pretty difficult. I normally am the kind of person who likes to check things off, but after a couple of days I always get sick of it, or I get bored, or I don't do it, and then I get like way off schedule. Like for an example, I've tried to do bullet journaling this month, and I have made myself a little habit tracker, and I find myself forgetting to fill it out every day. So that is something that didn't really work for me, but I didn't know that going into 2022. Well, I did know that going into 2022. I just was naive and thought I could change. So the first thing that I did to track my goals was I started a 75 soft. Now, if you are familiar with the concept of a 75 hard, which is like this really rigorous like athletic challenge, which is like working out 2 days a week, or 2 days a week, twice a day, very different things. So it's working out twice a day, reading 10 pages of a book, drinking 64 ounces of water, and I can't remember what the other things are, but there's 6 things that I think part of a 75 soft. But you do it for 75 days straight, and you don't miss any days, you don't miss any workouts, you don't miss anything. You just do what the challenge is telling you to do. And I knew that if I was gonna do something like that, I was just gonna fall off the wagon immediately. Especially with where my mindset was at the end of 2021, I definitely needed to kind of be more like relaxed and chill on myself, opposed to like making myself complete this really, really rigorous challenge. So I did a 75 soft. So what I did is I broke the day down by 3 into morning, afternoon, and evening, and I had just a couple of tasks that I wanted to complete throughout the day at those particular times, and then I would just cross it off the list when I was done with it. But by the time we got to day 50, I had completely abandoned the chart that I had made, and I was just not filling it out anymore because I thought, oh, I don't need the chart anymore. I've got myself into the habit. But it turns out I had not gotten myself into the habit, and I spent the rest of the year kind of like going back and forth between different habits that I wanted to build. And the second thing that I did to keep track of my goals was I made vision boards for every single month for this year. And I really liked my vision boards actually. I think that they turned out really nice and I really enjoyed making them. The process of making them was fun. It was creative. My friends also started making them, so we'd send them back and forth, and it was just like a really fun thing to do. And after I made my mood board, I would make it the background on my computer, my phone, and my iPad. So anytime I was on my electronics, I would see my vision board and I would say, okay, these are the things that I should be working on. And I was kind of hoping that like subconsciously it would like ingrain itself into my mind that like this is what I wanted. And for the most part, I think it worked. My favorite mood boards that I made this year were February, March, and December. I just liked the way that they looked. I thought that they were very aesthetically pleasing, and I really loved just what they kind of envisioned. I feel like they did like the best job of summarizing what those months were like for me. And the one that I think was the least accurate was June. I ended up getting the C word in June, and I was sick for I think 9 days, and it was miserable. And I just never got to do like really any of the things that I wanted to do for June. I did have sushi, but it was gross because I could not taste it, and I ended up getting food poisoning. So I still think that I could improve on these for the upcoming year. I'm still gonna make these vision boards because I think that they are so fun to make. But I think that instead of doing just big images, I'm also going to kind of write like some specific goals on each of the image. For this month, December, I put like a girl on a bike, right? And so I'm thinking that if I was to do this again, I would maybe write like a little sentence next to her that says like, do 30 minutes of cardio or something like that, just like next to her, so that I can keep track of my goals more efficiently. Because the pictures are good, but sometimes I look back at some of my other vision boards and I'm like, I really don't know what I was trying to convey here. So that's what I'm gonna do for 2023. I'm going to try and be more specific about the goals that I have on my vision boards, and I think that will help improve them. So now let's talk about what went well and what did not go well for this year. So first, I did become more physically active. And with becoming more physically active, I did lose some weight. I also ended up eating better and fixing my eating habits mostly, not all the way. There are still lots of days where I don't eat like I should, but most of the time, I eat fine. I also ran my first 5K this year, which I was very proud of. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And while I was running it, I was just like, this is awful. Why am I doing this? This is so not great. And then I crossed the finish line and I almost cried. I'm not going to lie. I was very emotional because I didn't think I could actually do it, but I did. I did actually do it. And towards my physical health, some things did not go as planned. Like I just mentioned, I got the C word, which put a big damper in my plans. After having the C word, I was out of the gym for about a month because I was just unable to breathe, and I was just not feeling very confident or like I really wanted to go to the gym. I was also super tired, so I did end up losing a lot of progress in my discipline, and so because of that, my gym habits are not as good as they were in March. But I'm trying really hard to get back onto track so that I can continue to go to the gym and work out consistently. Also, I traveled a lot this year. My boyfriend and I went to LA, Florida, and New York. And while we were in those states, we did exercise at least once. I just felt like I wasn't making the progress that I should have been making because I was doing like really little exercise, and then I was eating like really not good for you food. If you watched my Buffalo vlog, you know that we had Tim Hortons every single morning and pizza and wings, and we ate nothing else the entire trip, the whole 7 days that we were in New York. Next up, I was able to keep my house mostly clean, and the ways that I tried to make sure I did this is I tried to do something called a 20-minute clean, which is basically you just choose one room in your house and you just clean it for 20 minutes and you don't do anything else. You just clean it for 20 minutes, and you'd be surprised how much you can get done in 20 minutes. So in addition to my 20 minutes of clean, I also did 1 load of laundry a day, and that is 1 wash, dry, fold, and put away. Both the 20-minute clean and the 1 load of laundry were really hard for me to maintain because I would do really well to the point where my whole house would be clean, all my laundry would be done, and I'd have like maybe like a couple of socks that needed to be washed and maybe like a couple of t-shirts, and then I would just not wash it because I was like, there's just not enough to put in the laundry, and then I'd let it go for a couple of days, and before I knew it, my laundry stacked all the way up again. It's the same for the rooms. I would say, oh, my rooms are all clean, everything's put away, there's nothing I really need to do. And then I'd come back a week later. My rooms would be messier than if I had just picked up for 20 minutes one day. And for those 20 minutes, I've learned that you can also clean things that are not just like trash or your like main surfaces. Like you can clean your windows, you can clean door hinges, I don't know, just like clean something for 20 minutes and it'll help. It helps a lot whenever I get into the habit of doing that properly. So obviously, if you can't tell, my house did end up getting messy sometimes, but like I had mentioned before, it would really only be like one room that would be really messy and the rest of the house would be relatively clean. And so that is kind of, I guess, the benefit of doing what I was doing. And because of that, I feel like it's not a total failure, but it's definitely not a complete success. I also have a really hard time keeping up with my dishes. I hate doing the dishes. I hate it so much. It grosses me out and I don't like it. But I'm very particular about the way the dishwasher has to be set up, so I'm the only person who can do it. I'm the only person who can do it properly. But because of that, it is really hard to maintain. For a while, I was really on track doing dishes. I would put the dishes away in the morning and then load it throughout the day and start it at night and then unload it in the morning. And then I just kind of got out of the habit of doing that. And I wish that I could get myself back into the habit of it, but it's just a lot of work. Doing the dishes is a lot of work. Side note, I remember one time my dad yelling at my siblings and I for not putting the dishes away. Like we never did the dishes. And so he timed himself putting it away and he goes, "It takes 2.5 minutes. It's not that hard." I don't know why, but he's right. It takes 2.5 minutes and it's really not that hard, but it's just not my favorite chore to be doing. Next up, I did finish school, so I ended up graduating from UNLV with my master's degree. If you haven't seen that video, I have a video about it. I also got into ASU for a master's degree in data analytics and program evaluation, but unfortunately I had to defer because I just was unable to secure like a funding source for it. And so that was like a pretty big disappointment, but I feel like everything happens for a reason, especially this year. It feels like everything's happened for a reason. So I'm trying to look at it from a positive lens, even though having to defer because I can't find a funding source is a failure to me. It's not the worst thing that could possibly happen. Another thing is I had to defer a semester at UNLV, which is why I graduated in December and not in May. I was under the impression that I was going to be able to take a data science class at UNLV that I was not able to get into, unfortunately, and the classes don't open up until April. And so I needed to have submitted all of my proper documents and had everything completed by April to graduate in May, but they didn't open up the classes, so I didn't know that the class that I wanted wasn't going to be offered until April. You see, I had to defer there, which ended up being beneficial because I feel like my paper actually turned out a lot better having this extra semester to work on it. I feel like my master's thesis was a lot better with that extra time. But still, it was not what I was anticipating, and having to do an extra semester at UNLV was really difficult and like mentally taxing. But you know what? I made it. Fourth, I feel like I did become more creative this year, which I am very happy about. I did a lot of really fun projects. I started working on my book and I really do like my book. I really enjoy writing. I think it's such like a fun process to just have like these ideas in my head and to make them come to life on paper, and I've just really enjoyed that. I also read a lot, which I consider to be creative because I read a lot of fiction. I don't really enjoy reading nonfiction books. I had to do a lot of nonfiction reading for my degree, and so I'm just like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I read a lot of fiction books, and I have been really enjoying my fiction books. I do think I'm going to do a video about the books that I read this year, just like maybe like a one-sentence review of the books, but I've just also enjoyed doing that. However, where I feel like there was some failure was my book is taking me a lot longer than I thought to write. I started writing it in March and it is now December, and I've been on and off with my thoughts of it over and over again, and it has changed a lot since I had the initial idea for it, and because of that I have to like go back and change things, and so it's taking me a lot longer than I had hoped. I had actually hoped to be done with it by the end of this month so that I could use like January to do like editing and stuff like that, but I am not even close to being done. I'm like, maybe first act is over, we're definitely in the second act. But I had to go back and rewrite some of it because I wrote half the book in first person and half the book in third person, and so I needed to go back and rewrite. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's taking me a lot longer than I thought it would, and that's fine. I also didn't learn how to sew this year, which is something that I really wanted to do, but I am planning on trying to do that in 2023. My best friend and I are making our costumes this year for Ren Fair, and we have like a lore that we've come up for ourselves that involve Game of Thrones, and so we're making our own costumes, and so we have to sew them ourselves, and so I'd really like to get into learning how to do that. And last but not least, I did find a career path. I'm currently on track to become a teacher, but that means I did not succeed in my original idea to become a data analyst, which was really difficult for me because it was something that I really, really wanted to do. But I applied for over 50 jobs this year. That's 50 cover letters, 50 resumes. And I didn't even make it to the first round of interviews for any of those jobs that I applied for. So that was really disappointing, and I think that was probably like my biggest failure of the year, was just being unable to find a job. But I think that it gave me the ability to really consider the things that I like to do. And I do love teaching. I always really loved helping my peers learn, and I always liked making little like Jeopardy assignments and doing test prep and test reviews. And like I said, I'm like a lifelong learner, so I love learning, and I would love to help other people learn how to learn. And I think that's like the whole job of a teacher, is to help people learn how to learn. So even though I didn't get the job that I had initially set out for, I am really happy with where I'm at, and I am really looking forward to this teaching path. So basically what I learned this year is that sometimes hard work doesn't pay off, and that's okay. It's all right. You don't know if your hard work is going to pay off until you get to the end goal, and you never know unless you try. So even though saying sometimes hard work doesn't pay off, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you can work really hard and you have to find fulfillment in the fact that you worked hard, even if you don't get the particular outcome that you want. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with that. I definitely feel like I worked really hard, and I'm happy with the hard work that I did. And even though the outcome was a little disappointing, I'm still happy with all the work that I put into it. And I tried really hard, and that's all I can, say for myself. And I have to just accept that and move on to the next and probably better solution for myself. And also, timing is everything. And I know that it's so cliche or whatever, but timing really is everything. I think that a big reason why I was unable to find a data analyst job was because I was looking for a job in this time of 2022 when the tech industry is not doing particularly well. And because of that, they are not looking to hire new analysts. And I think that has definitely impacted, and I have absolutely no control over that, right? It's just the timing of the way that things are. Just like how in 2020, when I applied for a bunch of jobs between my bachelor's and master's degree, I was unable to find a job because it just happened to be the conditions of the world at the time that jobs were scarce. The other thing that I learned is that things can only be done if I do them myself. So for example, nobody's gonna write my book for me. It's just gonna sit there with a blinking cursor, and I can either continue to let it blink or I can write the book. Nobody else is gonna write the book for me. There's nobody gonna take like the little Harry Potter wand and take my little hair out of my ears, my little memories, and put them onto a screen for me. I am the only person who can actually do that. Similarly, the only person who can motivate myself is me. I can watch as many YouTube videos, Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts. There's only so many times I can watch those videos of people doing the things that I want to do and tell myself I want to do those things before I realize that the only person who can actually do those things are me. I can watch them do those things, but it's not going to impact me. All I'm doing is watching them. The only thing that's going to impact me is if I do them myself. And so that was something I also had to really learn this year and really focus on, was just being able to do things myself. And the last thing that I learned was that it's not luck, it's work, which kind of goes with the last one. This year, I was told by somebody that I was lucky for having some success in a particular aspect of my life, and I realized that I agreed with them, but then I thought it really wasn't luck. It was more of my hard work and dedication that got me to where I was. And because of that, I wanted to kind of emphasize that I think that hard work is really important, and working towards your goals is really what's going to make them achievable in the end. So essentially, I was using 2022 as this transitional period between 2021, which was really difficult for me, and 2023, which I hope will be really like a fun and ambitious year for me. I was using this year as a way to build foundations so that I can set myself up for success for 2023. And I had to allow myself to do things that would both succeed and fail, and I'm really glad that I was able to experience both success and failure this year, because I think that it has made me appreciate more my successes. And for my entire life, I have been afraid of failure. I've always been afraid to fail at anything. If I'm not good at something right away, I give up on it because I'm afraid that not being good at it right away is a sign of failure, when it's not. It's just I need to work harder at that thing in order to succeed. And so overall in 2022, I just focused on things that would make me happy, and obviously experimenting with the type of things that made me happy and figuring out what things I valued. And I think that I did a really good job of that. I think that 2022 was a very eye-opening year for me, and I'm really grateful for the time that I took for myself this year. Alright, so that was my 2022 in a nutshell, but now we're going to move on to 2023 and talk about my goals for 2023. So the first thing that I did when I was thinking about my 2023 goals is I had like so many in my head that I literally could not think which ones I wanted to prioritize or where the categories for them were or anything. So what I did is I made a little worksheet for myself. This is mine. You can find a link to this in the description below. Like I said, once again, it's totally free. Like, you don't have to pay for anything. There's no ads on the website. Like, it's literally just like you just go and download it. And there's a couple different versions. Like I said, there's a pink version, a coffee version, and this black and white version that I have because I don't have a color printer. Well, I do, but I don't have any colored ink. And what I did was I allowed myself to not be super aesthetically pleasing, and I just kind of wrote down things in each of these categories that I wanted to focus on for the upcoming year. So this is what mine looks like. I decided to use the one that had numbers because I like to be a little bit more organized with it and come up with like a number system. However, there is a non-numbered version for those of you who might be freaked out by numbers. Totally understandable. I included one without numbers. And basically, I just came up with a list of some of the things that I wanted to focus on for this upcoming year in each of these categories. And the 6 categories are personal development, relationships, professional, financial, health, and spiritual. And I just came up with a couple of things that I wanted to work on in those categories. So when you're filling this out, just fill it out for yourself. Nobody else is going to see this, so it can be as messy as you want it to be. It does not need to be aesthetically pleasing in any way. It is just for you. And I think that it's important for you to remember that these goals are your goals and nobody else needs to see them or needs to be even aware of them. Like, this is something very personal, and I think that that is something that can be really valued, is how personal your own goals are. And so when you're filling this out, try not to put too much pressure on yourself to have goals that you think you should have, and put goals that you want to have. So after I came up with my list of goals that I wanted to complete in 2023, I took a minute and I kind of looked at my goals and I thought, what are some of the commonalities between these things? And I came up with 2 different potential words: consistency and effort. And those 2 things basically are the epitome of what I am trying to accomplish in 2023. Whereas in 2022, I was focused on being happy. In 2023, I am focusing on consistency. So my only goal for 2023 is to be consistent. And this is where the title of the video comes in. So essentially there's this scene in the office where Kevin is talking to his coworkers and he says, "Why waste time, say lot word, when few word do trick?" By allowing myself to just have this one word that is influencing my entire year, I think that I'm able to adjust and manage my goals a lot more easily. So that is why I broke down my goals for last year and this year into just one single word: be happy for last year and be consistent for this year. So for personal life, my main goal for the year is to learn to speak conversational Spanish. I currently have a 250-day Duolingo streak, and I would really like to improve on my Spanish even more. I live in Las Vegas, where there is a very large population of Hispanic people and non-English speakers, and I want to be able to help those people if it is ever necessary. For example, there's times when I'm at grocery stores or when I'm at school or where I'm somewhere where somebody does not speak English and they are unable to get the assistance that they need, and so I want to be able to help those people more because I'm able to understand their language and help direct them to the proper resources to help them with whatever they're trying to get help for. Also, I just think it'd be kind of cool to speak Spanish. Another goal in my personal life is to read 30 books. I read 30 books this year, I read 30 books last year, and I want to read 30 books again in 2023. Maybe try to aim for some more outside of 30, but 30 books seems to be a good number for me. It seems to be like the amount that I can read in a year. Although now that I'm not in school, it might be that I have more free time and I can read more often, but we will see. We will see what happens in 2023. For my professional life, I want to finish my book. I want to like completely finish it. I want to try and maybe even get it published. I'm not sure how that will go. It's a very long process, I think, and I'm very nervous about it, but I would really like to try and do that for my professional life. Also, I want to become a teacher. Like I said, I'm currently like taking the courses that I need. I'm getting the certificates that I need to try and become a teacher, and so I want to just fulfill that goal, and I want to become a teacher. For health, I have the very cliche, I want to work out more often, and I also want to eat healthier. Those are two things that I've been really focusing on in the month of December, and I'd really like to take this foundation that I'm building for myself right now and apply it to the rest of the year for 2023 so that I can try and build good habits through eating and exercise. For financial, I want to save $5,000. Having just finished grad school, I basically have no savings, and so I want to get a job and be able to save some money so that I can at least have something in the savings accounts. For relationships, I want to spend more time with my partner. This is like going on dates and doing things together, where, you know, like watching a movie or just doing something simple. I also want to call my grandparents more often. I'm really bad at calling my grandparents and I really need to get better at it. But essentially all of these goals have some form of consistency associated with them. So each one of my goals that I just listed has some sort of consistent behavior that needs to be done, which is why I made be consistent my main goal for 2023. So after you complete the 2023 brain dump, you then will see a quarterly goals personal development sheet. And there's one of these for every single one of the type of goals that you can set. I filled out goals for each one of the quarters, but you can fill it out for just this upcoming quarter if you want, or you can fill it out for all. It doesn't matter, it's completely up to you. And basically what you want to do here is you just want to put little ways for you to accomplish your goals in that quarter. So for an example, for my personal development one, I have for Spanish, I have focus on grammar and vocab. So just focusing on improving my grammar and my vocabulary for Spanish. And for the second quarter of the year, I have practice speaking Spanish with someone I know. I have a very good friend who is fluent in Spanish, and I know that he would be more than willing to have conversations with me in Spanish and English so that I can improve my Spanish. Then for the third quarter of the year, I have a full conversation with somebody I know. So this is not the same person I'm going to practice with. It'll just be somebody else I know who also speaks Spanish, having a full conversation with them in Spanish to try and improve my Spanish even more, and to just kind of get like other people's dialects, because sometimes some people who speak Spanish don't speak Spanish the same way other people speak Spanish. For an example, both my friends are from Mexico, but say I had a friend who was also from Spain. My friend from Spain would have different Spanish than my friends from Mexico, and that's just part of having dialects. It's the same way that speaking English in the United States is different than speaking English in the UK. And then finally, for the last quarter of the year, I have a full conversation with somebody I don't know in Spanish. So this is just like one single conversation I'm picturing in my head having with somebody that I don't know in Spanish. So hopefully I can achieve those goals. But as you can see, I just kind of broke down little goals for each of the quarters of the upcoming year to try and work on during that quarter. And then I did that for every single one of the different types of goals. So for an example, another one that I'll show you is my financial goals, because I think that this is a pretty good one to do. So since my goal is to save $5,000 for the year of 2023, I have saved $1,250 for each of the quarters. It's also important to remember that if you're filling this out for the whole year, that you will definitely change over the course of the next year. You might not be a big fan of your goals that you're setting now in June. And goals are not meant to be rigid. I think that goals should change as you change as well. For an example, in 2022, I started out the year wanting to learn how to sew, but instead I ended up trying to write a book. So it's a huge difference, but it changed over time. My goal had changed from wanting to have one creative outlet to having another creative outlet. And with that, I think that it's important to keep that in mind when you're forming your goals. This is the last page. You can either print out one for each of the goals you set for that section, or you can just use one sheet like I did because my goals are pretty small. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to evaluate where you're currently at with your goals. So we'll also use my personal development one as the example here as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to write down what are you currently doing well, and you're going to want to try and either write like a couple of words of the things that you think you're doing well in the goal that you have currently set for yourself. For an example, for speaking conversational Spanish, I put Duolingo streak as something that I'm currently doing well. I have a really long Duolingo streak, 250 days. I'm very proud of it. And because of that, I definitely know that I'm doing something right in that direction, right? And even if you can't think of something that you're doing right, try really hard to be lenient on yourself. Goals should not be something stressful. They should be something that motivates you to want to do well. And if you are making goals for yourself where you're like, oh, I feel so bad because I don't do this, maybe be a little bit more lenient on yourself. So after you fill out what you are currently doing well, you are then going to want to fill out how can you improve. And this can either be a couple of words or a sentence. I would prefer if it was a sentence, but once again, nobody's going to see this, only you. And what you're basically going to do is you're just going to write a way that you can improve on your goal currently. So for mine, I could do 1 unit of Duolingo a day rather than just 1 lesson, because right now I do at least 1 lesson a day, and every now and then I'll do 1 full unit, which is one of those little circles where the lesson is just 1 part of a little circle. And I think that by changing my goal from doing just 1 lesson to doing 1 unit will really increase my Spanish understanding and my Spanish skills. And so especially my vocabulary, because Duolingo is really good at teaching you new words and also teaching you how to like do sentence structure and stuff like that. But by doing 1 unit a day, I can definitely see myself improving faster than if I was just doing 1 lesson a day, or continue to do 1 lesson a day, which is what I currently do. And the last part is to fill out these steps to improving. So I included just 4 boxes. You might need more, and if you need more, just get out a sheet of paper and just write on it. Or I printed out double-sided, but you can also write on the back of your sheets also if that is something that you wanted to do. But basically, I broke down my goal to improving my Spanish into little steps that were a little bit more measurable. So for speaking Spanish, the first step to completing my goal would just to be continue doing my Duolingo. Because if I continue to do my Duolingo, I will eventually complete the Spanish lessons that they have on the app. It will take me a while, but I will eventually do it. So I think that it's important for me to continue my Duolingo. And that's the first step. The second step is to complete 1 unit a day. Like I mentioned, something that I can improve on is doing a unit opposed to a lesson. And so by doing 1 unit, I think that I can see my Spanish improving. Next, I have listened to the Duolingo podcasts. Duolingo has a bunch of free podcasts that you can listen to. And I think that by listening to these podcasts, I will be able to hopefully pick up on words more frequently and kind of just listen to the way that words are pronounced, and hopefully that will help with my Spanish speaking. And my last step is to watch Spanish TV. Now I get a bunch of ads on YouTube for like this channel that helps you learn to speak Spanish, but they have a bunch of episodes of Friends that have been dubbed over in Spanish, and since I've already seen Friends, I feel like watching it in Spanish would be a really good exercise but also entertainment, and so that is something else I can also do. So that's my 4th step, is to be able to watch, you know, those TV shows in Spanish. But basically you are just going to do all of this for every single one of the goals that you set, and it can be really tedious and it might take you more than just 1 day, and that's totally fine. In fact, I would say that taking more time to assess and evaluate your goals is better. Doing this took me 2 days. I really wanted to make sure that I was getting the goals that I wanted to and really thinking and really trying to evaluate where I'm at. And it is okay if in, I don't know, March, you look at this and you're like, this is not really representative of where I want to be anymore, to just throw it away and to do it again. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to change your goals. It's totally fine. But I think it's good to sit and think about your goals and to consider what are the things that you want to see happen in 2023. So those are my goals for 2023. I am really excited to see what 2023 brings me, the wrenches that are going to be thrown into my plans, and the things that are going to change over the next year. I'm really looking forward to using 2023 as a year to just be consistent in the things that I want to accomplish. And that's why my only goal for 2023 is to be consistent. Well, that's all I have for you today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and comment down below what your main goals are for the upcoming year. And if you use the worksheet, also let me know, because I did take my time to make these and I really wanted to make sure they were accessible to people. So if you like them, let me know. And of course, if you want me to make more worksheets like this in the future, let me know. I can also do that. I really love making worksheets. I think it's part of the reason why I think I'll be a good teacher. But that's all I have for you today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!